Welcome to Randy Anagnostis Photography Workshops. My name is Randy Anagnostis, and I'm happy to be your host for these workshops. Today's topic is manual mode photography, and the goal is to have you break away from the automatic function of your camera. Tip number 1, it's not complicated. Hopefully this workshop will show you how easy it can be to shoot in manual mode. Depending upon your camera, you should be able to find a dial or a menu item that allows you to select manual mode. The real advantage to shooting manually is that it allows you to be a bit more creative with your photography. Cameras are designed to meet certain standards and criteria, but from time to time, you might want to change those. Tip number 2, smarter than the camera. In these two examples, automatic mode will give you a standard level of brightness. But when you look at the image, you might decide that it really needs to be a bit darker, just so the detail and the white levels are a little more noticeable. It can really improve your image. In this photo, the camera is allowing the sunlight to dictate the level of light. But when you take a look at the image, you notice that the waves and the background should have a little more contrast. So with some very slight adjustments, you can take that shot and create the kind of image that you see in your mind. To me, that makes you smarter than the camera. While the first image may be perfectly acceptable, manual mode allows you to be a little more creative and inject your personal preference. Tip number 3, the 3 basics. I am not going to get overly technical in this workshop, but if you decide to try manual mode shooting, there are 3 key functions that you need to take a look at. We could spend several workshops just discussing aperture, shutter speed, and ISO speed, but suffice to say that in manual mode, you have the ability to change those slightly or drastically and totally change the finished photo. When I photographed this beluga whale, it was nighttime, and I knew that automatic mode would not capture the depth and the clarity of the water. Using the 3 elements we just discussed, I immediately set the aperture and shutter speed to a lower setting, and I increased the ISO speed to let in more light. Tip number 4, slow moving water. Your photos can convey a sense of motion. It can either be fast or it can be slow. How often have you seen those photos where the water has that milky effect to it? Very, very slow motion. It's the feeling that you get from the photo image. Again, by modifying your aperture and shutter speed and your ISO speed, you can create this kind of image in manual mode. It takes a bit of practice, but it's easily done. Tip number 5, understanding noise. What exactly is noise when you're referring to photography? Ironically enough, noise is actually a silent element in photography. Basically, you need to know that at a low ISO setting, you'll have the least amount of noise. Once you go up in ISO speed, beyond 800, 1000, 2000, 10,000, you will incur elements of noise that can become evident in your finished photo. In this magnified segment of the photo, you can see all the pixels. That's what's referred to as noise, or the graininess that's created using an ISO speed that may be too high Tip number 6, Easy Info Guide. I was very fortunate in that a professional photographer friend many years ago insisted that I should shoot manual mode instead of automatic. So here I am telling you the exact same thing. Remember those 3 key elements that we discussed earlier. Aperture, shutter, and ISO speeds are very helpful, but there are other manual mode settings that you can take advantage of. In this photo, the automatic exposure level produced an image that was way too dark. Your camera may have an exposure compensation function. You can choose to make your image darker or lighter in incremental steps. In this case, a slight increase improved the overall quality considerably. This pipe organ, with its brass ornament detail, was first shot in automatic mode. The details were too dark. With a slight increase in the exposure compensation level, you can really begin to see the intricate detail in the layers of feathers. Again, manual mode simply gives you more opportunity to achieve your own personal style. Practice making a few slight adjustments and see how creative you can be. Today is simply an introduction to manual mode. Your camera may have many capabilities that can assist you in a number of different ways. Here's a great example. Your camera may have a gyroscope function just like mine. It helps you set the horizontal and vertical alignments as you're looking through your viewfinder to perfectly align a certain photo image. It's a great tool, and there may be many more on your camera. So let's move on to tip number 7, flash to freeze. The opposite of those slow-moving water techniques we discussed earlier are those moments when you want to capture a spontaneous instant of time, water as an example flowing down from a waterfall where you want that detail, you want to see the droplets. This is the time when your on-camera or attached flash becomes an invaluable tool. Flash has the ability to stop time for that very split second and allows you to really see the detail in your image. Okay, tip number 8, high key effect. Many times you'll see photographs where the background seems to be very, very white, almost excessively bright. That's something referred to as a high key effect. You can actually do some artistic things trying to copy that technique. An easy way to accomplish that is to use your flash with a very high ISO speed. The point here is to be creative and have some fun. Experiment. Tip number 9, when lightning strikes. Taking pictures of lightning could be another entire workshop. Here are just some basic pointers you need to know about trying to photograph lightning. Your camera may or may not have a bulb exposure mode, either in manual or automatic settings. If your camera does not have a bulb setting, try shooting in the lowest aperture possible on your camera with a high ISO value. If your camera has a bulb setting, try 20 to 30 seconds, depress the shutter button, and be patient. Repeat this as many times as necessary, and eventually you'll capture a lightning strike. And finally, tip number 10, reset, reset, reset. I stated at the beginning of this workshop that shooting in manual mode will give you more control of your camera. Start experimenting. You always can reset your camera, time and time again. Reset it, reset it, reset it. Take hundreds of pictures. Ultimately, you'll have more control of your camera and you'll be more creative and artistic in the photographic images that you accomplish. A good idea is to keep a pad and pen handy. When you find an aperture, shutter, and ISO speed setting that gives you an image you really love, jot it down and refer to it in the future. Manual mode photography may not be as easy as automatic mode, but the results can be extremely rewarding. Get out there, shoot, have fun. Here are 5 new ideas to help you improve your manual mode photography skills. Number 1, try taking 3 sunset photos by changing the shutter speed and aperture settings in manual mode. Number 2, turn on a faucet or shower and create a slow-moving water photo using low shutter speed. Number 3, turn on a faucet or shower and create a crystal clear detail photo of the water using a high ISO setting and a flash. Number 4, photograph the moon at night using different manual modes. Number 5, take a picture of a single flower to create a high-key image. I hope you have enjoyed today's workshop and will join me again in the future.